Winter is coming, and the dead come with it. Hey everybody, welcome to Hot Topics Week here on The Den. And there is nothing hotter going on in my life than the Season 5 finale of Game of Thrones. And before we go any further, I want you all to know that this is going to be loaded with spoilers and theories and plots and stuff that's in the books and stuff that happened on the show. So if you don't want to be spoiled for Game of Thrones, just stop watching this video right now, because this video is not for you. So at the end of Season 5 of Game of Thrones, something really critically important happens to our favorite brooding emo guy on the wall, Jon Snow. Those of us who read the novel A Dance with Dragons back when it came out in 2011 have known that this is going to happen for a really long time, but the show finally got around to it, and Jon went out Caesar style, stabbed by his fellow men of the Night's Watch. Yeah. Now, a lot of people are saying, like, Jon's not dead, and I am one of the people that is firmly in the camp of Jon Snow is not dead. And I'm going to give you all of the reasons why I feel that Jon Snow is critically important to the story of A Song of Ice and Fire, and why he will be resurrected or not dead or something in the Season 6 show. Jon Snow's parentage has been a point of critical discussion over the course of many years. So there's a very popular fan theory that Jon Snow is actually the child not of Ned Stark, but of Ned Stark's sister, Lyanna Stark, and her lover, captor, Rhaegar Targaryen. So prior to all the events that happen in the Game of Thrones, there was an incident that took place about 17 years ago where Rhaegar Targaryen abducted Ned Stark's sister, who was betrothed to Robert Baratheon, and this sparked a war to reclaim her. It was kind of the Trojan War of its day, right? So there is kind of like hints and stories about stuff that happened at the end of that war. And one of the things that happens is that Ned Stark comes back from the war with a child. Now, Ned Stark and some of his compatriots go searching for his sister, Lyanna. And it's known where they are. Rhaegar and Lyanna had been holed up kind of in the mountains outside of Dorne, in the Tower of Joy. And it's been a while since that started. It was about a year or so since Rhaegar took Lyanna. And when Ned arrives there, he was confronted with, some very powerful knights of the realm, some of the King's Guard who had been sent to protect Rhaegar. But since Rhaegar had been defeated at the Battle of the Ruby Ford by Robert Baratheon, who crushed his chest in with a great hammer, this was the last opportunity for Ned to go find his sister. So Ned finds her protected by these King's Guard, one of whom is this legendary warrior, Sir Arthur Dayne, who has this amazing sword, probably crafted from like some kind of fallen star or meteorite or something. And Ned and his compatriot Howland Reed and a couple of other people storm the Tower of Joy, and many of them are taken out in the process because Arthur Dayne is fucking badass, as well as some of the other guys who were with them. And it's only because Howland Reed was able to sneak up on Arthur Dayne that they were able to gain the advantage and take him down. And in that scenario, it's believed that Ned got something from Lyanna, and he was forced to promise her something. And people believe that something was a child, and that child is Jon Snow. Now, some people say, no, Ned has said that Jon Snow is actually his bastard son. But Ned never actually says that. If you go back to Season 1, Episode 2 of Game of Thrones, then you can see the scene where they're on the King's Road, and Ned says, "You may not have my name, but you have my blood." Now, his blood, his family blood, same as his sister, Lyanna. So, here, that's the theory. Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals Jon Snow. R plus L equals J. That's the equation that everyone talks about. And I think that there's a lot of truth and validity to that. Now, there's really important other things that are part and parcel of this theory. But to stay focused on Rhaegar and Lyanna for just a few more minutes, over the course of all 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, this story keeps coming back. Rhaegar and Lyanna are the entire reason why this country is in chaos. Yes, Aerys the Mad King was a horrible person, and he burned people alive, and he was going to destroy the countries of Westeros, but he would have been succeeded in his kingdom if it had not been for the death of his sons. So Rhaegar was killed. His wife, Elia Martell, their children were killed, and Aerys's other children were, like, spirited away, so Viserys and Daenerys were just, immediately gotten the hell out of there, so that they wouldn't be murdered, because Robert was killing all of the Targaryen children, just wipe out the house, right? Well, so now we have this other factor. Ned, who is Robert's very close friend and confidant, has this baby who is, for all intents and purposes, a Targaryen child and heir. And so, what does he do? He assumes the responsibility and changes the child's name to be that of a bastard of the North and claims the child as his own for the protection of Jon Snow. So, there we go. That's where we're at. That was the long history of Rhaegar and Lyanna, the Paris and Helen of this story. Now, Jon Snow gets stabbed 4, 5, 6 times. Ollie, giving him the last stab through the chest. But there's plenty of ways that this could go that makes sense within the storyline of the Song of Ice and Fire. So we already know that there's a couple of things that can happen. So we know, for one, that the others, the ice zombies from beyond the wall, can raise the dead. Now they come back as, like, blue-eyed, mindless, walking zombie monsters, but they can raise the dead. Now the counterpoint to this is that the priests and priestesses of R'hllor, who are Thoros of Myr, Melisandre, several other people that we've not quite seen but know of that exist in this world, can also raise the dead through the power of R'hllor, the Lord of Light. So we see this with Thoros of Myr and Beric Dondarrion in seasons 2 and 3. So Beric Dondarrion was resurrected numerous times by Thoros of Myr, 6, 7 times, and boom, he says that each time, like, he loses a piece of himself, but he's still alive. He's not a mindless zombie, he's actually still Sir Beric Dondarrion. So there's a possibility that, Jon Snow could be resurrected by either an ice zombie of the others, or possibly by Melisandre, who's happening to be there at the wall right now. So Melisandre could raise him up through the power of the Lord of Light. That could happen. That could legitimately happen. Now, the other thing that could happen is that we also know that in this world there are people who can warg and send their spirit out into other creatures. And these other creatures could be their direwolves. So, like, Bran can see through the eyes of his direwolf Summer. Orell, who was another one of the wildling wargs, he was able to see through the eyes of a hawk. They both had special bonds there. But, I mean, Jon hasn't really exhibited these kinds of powers, but as a Stark who has a direwolf, and being of the blood of the first men, and the first men are connected to the children of the forest, and the children have these magical powers, there's a possibility that Jon could go boop and pop into his direwolf, Ghost. And with a name like Ghost, that might tell you something about what's going on here. So that's another one of those things that's embedded in the narrative of the Song of Ice and Fire, is that their house sigils, the house sigils of these clans, have extreme power for them. And there's a lot of foreshadowing that happens through the use of these creatures. So why not Jon Snow, who has this direwolf that he calls Ghost, be the host for him in his physical death, so that his soul doesn't leave, his soul doesn't start to fall to pieces. So those are the three ways that Jon Snow could be totally not dead in the course of this story. But it's more important in the fact that there are things to come for which having Jon Snow in the narrative makes a lot more sense, which is why it's really a bad idea that he be completely dead in this story. There is a big war to come, the battle in the snow. You know, Melisandre sees it in the fire, Stannis sees it in the fire. Everybody knows the White Walkers are coming, winter is coming, and the dead come with it. And there's going to be a huge fucking army of the dead descending on the wall. The wall is probably going to get blown to pieces, and then the army of the dead is going to come marching down into Westeros. Like, it's going to be chaos and death, and it's going to be fucking horrible, and they need champions out the yin-yang to make this not be a horrible, horrible end-of-the-world scenario. So Daenerys, with her dragons and their dragon fire, is definitely one of the elements of this story, but Jon, being possibly the descendant of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, is just as equally important in terms of balancing the people that he knows in the Wall, the wildlings that he has this affinity in this relationship with, that can come and fight for the living, and Daenerys with her armies and her, unsullied, and the massive amounts of people that she's freed from enslavement across the sea, and the Dothraki horde that she just flew into. All of these she can bring to Westeros and take down the army of the dead. And this is why I think that Jon Snow needs to be a part of this story. I think that Jon Snow plays a really important role in the war to come, and I think that it's been prophesized, like, numerous times. Like, there are all kinds of hints that come through the story. Melisandre seeing snow, snow, snow in the fire. And Daenerys' visions in the House of the Undying, which are in the books, but not so much in the show all of these things about Rhaegar and Lyanna and the child that they had. And it's just really, really, really important for him to be a part of the story. So, long story short, too late. Jon Snow is not dead. If he is, he's coming back. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to know more about all the shit going down in Game of Thrones, leave me a comment down in the crotch. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I have read all of the books, I have watched all of the shows, I have seen the shows numerous times. I'm going through them again for probably like the umpteenth time, watching them from beginning to end, catching all the little details. So please, if you have a question about Game of Thrones, drop it in the crotch. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. You can go find us on YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'll see you all next Friday. Cheers!